Are you skipping meals to lose weight? You might actually be doing more harm than good to your hormones. The weight loss industry has two things really wrong when it comes to dropping inches as a woman over 35. One is calorie restriction, or anything less than about 1,400 calories per day. When we follow just a calorie counting diet, a lot of times this tends to make us omit really hormone friendly foods like nuts, olives, or higher quality sources of protein because they're high in calories or calorie dense. Your hormones need these more than they need brown rice, sourdough bread, or low fat yogurt. If you don't eat enough food, eventually your body's stress response will kick in and you will go into this survival mode. Some signs that you are in survival mode are weight loss plateau, cravings for more high fat, high carb foods like desserts, cookies, sometimes even saltier snacks like chips, exhaustion, no motivation, always feeling hungry or never feeling hungry at all, weight gain for no reason, even though you've changed nothing, mood swings, brain fog, bloating, and a whole host of other symptoms. But these tend to be the most common. The other problem with the weight loss industry's messaging is that is around fasting. So intermittent fasting, specifically the afternoon, evening, heavy 6 to 8 hour eating windows. So what I mean by this is when an intermittent fasting person tells you to skip breakfast and start eating around 12 or 1 o'clock and eat through till like 7 or 8 at night. They don't support your hormones because when you eat at noon or later, you're starving certain hormones. And this doesn't make up the difference. Being outside of hormone alignment like this also retrains your circadian rhythm, throwing off sleep and stress regulation and weight loss or weight maintenance. Going too long without food, especially if you're a woman struggling with a hormonal issue like chronic fatigue, PMS, period issues, inflammation, endometriosis, PCOS, mood swings, weight issues, cravings, anxiety, etc. This will deprive your healing processes of the nutrients that they need or worsen those symptoms or make more pop up later. So the two fat storage hormones you need to focus on if you really want to lose weight and drop inches and keep it off are insulin and cortisol. Calorie restrictive diets, low carb diets, carnivore diets, intermittent fasting, essentially any diet that dictates to you to either skip a meal, eat less food than you need, or remove almost an entire critical nutrient like carbs will eventually, and when I say eventually, 2 to 6 months down the road, trigger your body's stress response. Cortisol rises, thinking you're in danger. So its primary innate job here is to mobilize some stored energy for those long days ahead that it perceives to be happening without nutrition, like when you're not eating enough. Then cortisol spikes inflammation and starts to break down muscle into glucose. When this happens, your body, because it's in the survival mode, doesn't want that glucose to be used as energy. It's trying to protect itself. So that glucose gets shunted to fat cells for storage for those long days ahead that your body perceives, okay, she's starving me. I don't see any end in sight. I better start holding on to resources to protect the body. Its primary response and its job is to protect your organs to keep you alive. So that's what it's doing. At the detriment of muscle loss, this is happening. This is key. Muscle burns fat. Keep that in mind. So your body isn't taking in the glucose. Now what? Well, your brain thinks it's starving as well. So suddenly you get these insane cravings. You feel at a loss to control. Higher carb junk food. Can't stop at just one cookie. Sitting there and you're like 3 glasses of wine in and you're kind of like, what just happened? This is usually that point in most weight loss programs where women feel like they've failed because they've fallen off the wagon and it's just like, it was just too hard. I just gave up. They have not failed. This is the weight loss industry failing you, not your fault at all. So those cravings are strong and you give in. We've all done it. We've ordered the pizza and eaten the whole thing in one sitting. Sometimes pretty guiltily, right? We've eaten the entire bag of family-sized chips. We've gone through an entire loaf of bread or a whole bag of chips Ahoy cookies. Then we feel awful later. And suddenly it starts to feel like once you've eaten something higher carb or higher sugar or higher fat like this, you just cannot stop day after day after day. And I'll hear this from women all the times. Like, well, I went on that weekend and I had like it was a birthday and I had a piece of cake, glass of wine. And like ever since then, I just can't stop craving carbs. Ever felt like this? This is your survival mechanism in top gear. And when you eat those foods, now insulin is pumping out in larger amounts to move that glucose that you've taken in, get it into your cells so it can be burned as energy. That's insulin's job. However, guess what? Inflammation blocks most of insulin from doing its job. So insulin takes that glucose that can't go into your cells and shunts it to fat cells for storage. Insulin's primary job is to keep glucose out of your blood, because when it's in your bloodstream, it's very pro-inflammatory. So insulin is also a protective hormone, and its job is to store excess glucose in fat cells. Inside the fat cells, technically speaking, in insulin's mind, that's no longer inflammatory. However, fat cells are little inflammation factories, so this also spikes more and more inflammation. This is typically when we see that rebound weight gain effect kick in. This is known in my world, in holistic nutrition, as weight loss resistance, and it's because the weight loss strategy that you were given is not designed for long-term sustainable weight loss, because it stimulates your two most potent fat storage hormones. So instead, we need to flip how we look at weight loss and start focusing on how to support fat burning hormones like glucagon, estrogen, and thyroid, and tame the stress and inflammation. To do this, eat regular balanced meals starting with breakfast around 6 to 9 a.m., plus 2 to 3 good balanced meals throughout the day. Stop eating by about 6 or 7 at night, and ensure that every meal has protein, fat, and lots of plants. This is the key to maintaining a healthy weight and balanced hormones.